So welcome, folks. This is the very last session of Thursday, day 4 of Baltimore Data Week. So glad that you could join us. My name is Cheryl Nod. I am the GIS project manager for the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. We are your hosts for Baltimore Data Week. We're very excited to be doing this hands-on 2-hour session where we're going to be looking at OpenStreetMap. First, we'll be hearing from Maggie Cawley. So she is with OpenStreetMap US. And then we are going to be looking at adding some data sets to the OpenStreetMap website, and that will be led by Jonathan Dandois and Elliott Plack. So glad that you are here. We are going to be sharing this live on Facebook. So hello to everyone on Facebook. All presentation materials will be available on the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicator Alliance website, will be on YouTube, and if you have any questions, please feel free to share those on the chat. We'll be monitoring them. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Maggie and get going and learn about OpenStreetMap. Thanks.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Cheryl. Very excited to be here as part of Baltimore Data Week. I know last year we had an in-person Mapathon, and we'll try to do our best to make it just as fun. I'm going to start off with the presentation. So as I share my screen and make sure everyone can see that. Okay. It's always a second. All right, are we in?
Looks good.
Okay, there we go. Like Cheryl said, my name is Maggie Cawley. Until very recently, I was based in Baltimore, just down the street from where the conference may have been held. I am the executive director for OpenStreetMap US. We are a nonprofit based in the US, working to support and grow OpenStreetMap throughout the country. I normally ask if anybody has heard of OpenStreetMap. But since I can't get a show of hands, maybe you can put it in the chat if you've heard of it. But this is always a statistic that kind of strikes me, that 70% of the world is not mapped in any open, accessible data source with any meaningful level of data. That's a lot of the world. I know a lot of that's water, but water can also be mapped. There we go. So OpenStreetMap is the largest collaborative, freely editable open source map of the world. You'll see this image as you zoom in. You get pieces and parts of all the cities, all these different attributes and features. Anybody can edit, anybody can use the data. So you can map your neighborhood, or you could map, as we're zooming into Dar es Salaam, you could even go over and map Dar. It's often described as the Wikipedia for maps. And it was started in 2004, so it's 16 years old this year. I have an image here. Here's some of the first imagery from OpenStreetMap. And when Steve Coates registered it, he started having people drive around with GPS units, couriers, or just riding around on their bikes and uploading those tracks to the internet for anyone to use. The image on the right is an image from the first Mapathon, which was held on the Isle of Wight. And the whole goal here, you can see the different colors, are all the different participants that uploaded data during that Mapathon. And his goal was to create a free, publicly available database of geospatial data, since it was not available where he was living in the UK. So that idea took off pretty quickly, and it went from 20 users in the UK to millions of users now. I'm going to go through this quick presentation pretty quickly so we can get to the fun stuff. But people often ask, why is this important? Why wouldn't we just use Google? Why do we need OpenStreetMap? I always like to show different slides of a certain proprietary map versus an open map. This is a screenshot of a map you might be familiar with, Google Maps. And here's a screenshot of OpenStreetMap. You can see this is part of Loudoun County. OpenStreetMappers have added a lot more data for this. You can see along the creek, there's pathways and sidewalks and picnic benches, and especially along the high school, you can see all the different parking stalls and the baseball diamond. So this just gives you an idea of the level of detail you can get to into OpenStreetMap, which you generally can't, or other maps might not be interested in going to this level of detail. With OpenStreetMap, you also get to see who is making your map. It provides transparency and accountability. You can go down to the edit level and say, which mapper added this driveway, or who added this picnic table, and actually reach out to them and talk to them about the edit. Why is this important? Well, it democratizes data. It prevents a monopoly on place. It allows people to own and use the data of their towns. And personally, I just believe that some things don't belong behind bars. In this case, geospatial data, not kittens. I don't keep kittens behind bars. This is a new slide. Jonathan, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sorry, I inserted that in there. So I saw this at another event recently, and I just thought it really captured well what you're talking about in terms of where there's data and where there's missing data. So this is produced by the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and it correlates areas where there's buildings in OpenStreetMap against known population densities. So the areas that are red have high population density, but a low number of buildings in OpenStreetMap, which would be an indicator of missing map data. So it kind of gives a sense of the scale of OpenStreetMap and what there is left to do. So I just thought it was a nice compliment to your 70% statistic.
Perfect. Yeah, I should have checked with you on that first. But yeah, you can see where a lot of people have focused mapping, and OpenStreetMap, like I said, started in the UK, so it makes a lot of sense that the European community has taken most of Europe and put it on the map. So who's behind OpenStreetMap? The global community is now made up of millions of people, mappers, people out there collecting the data, doing street surveys. There's what we call armchair mappers, so people mapping from the comfort of their own homes on their computers, which we'll all do tonight. There's developers building the tools and maintaining the tools that we all rely on to edit, to download, to export. Then there's the data consumers. I mean, who's using the data, and they're just as important. Local and regional communities, humanitarian groups. There's so many different people invested in the OpenStreetMap project. Here's a graph like to show the growth. I think now the project has scaled beyond the founder's wildest dreams, which is great for the world. More and more people are getting access to OpenStreetMap and the rich data set that it provides. This chart is a little bit dated, but you can see it went from 0 to 6 million in the last 16 years. Recently, we did a survey within the OpenStreetMap US community to find out, what and why people are mapping. This is kind of a word cloud of a lot of all the terms that came up. What people enjoy mapping. So you see trails, infrastructure, parks, hiking, fire hydrants. It's one of the beautiful things about OpenStreetMap is that it can become a hobby project. So if you really like to hike, but there's not very good trails in your area, you can go out and add those trails while you're doing something that you love to do. If you like to bike, you can add the bike paths. If you see something missing, if the fire hydrants aren't well mapped or the bus stops, you can go out and add that. So it's just an image of the respondents and the different interests they all had. Another question that's often asked is why people map? And I think this is an individual answer as well. I mean, some people map, like I said, because they want to use the trail map that they use every day and want it to be well mapped. Other people, like when Steveco started it, they couldn't find good data of their town, or it's not open source. And luckily in Baltimore, we have a lot of data available to us, but in a lot of places, this is not the case. A lot of people start mapping for humanitarian disaster activations. Hot, I'll talk about them for a minute. Some people map because they play Pokemon Go, and areas where they're playing the game are not well mapped. So here's just a few reasons you can read those. How is all of this organized? What are all those millions of people up to? So I'll start by saying it's not. It's a very decentralized community, which is part of its beauty. But there are a few organizations trying to keep it all together. The main one being the OpenStreetMap Foundation, which is based in the UK. It's run by volunteer board members, and they are mainly running the server that holds all of this data. It's not on the cloud. There are working groups within the foundation. You can become a member of the foundation to support that. And they just recently had their global conference online as well. So within the foundation, there are local chapters. You can see here, there's a lot of countries that are already local chapters. OpenStreetMap US is just put in our application to become a formal local chapter of the foundation. And then we will focus on working in the US as we've done for the last 10 years. Like I said, we're a nonprofit. We hold events. We have an education aspect. We do advocacy for the map, and we help to support our community. Some of the things we've been doing recently, we call them Mappy Hours. So they're online. People join from all over the country. Before we would meet a couple times a year and have birthday parties around the map, hackathons and mapathons, but we're moving a lot of that online. So if you enjoy tonight, every other Wednesday, we generally get together and talk about something within OpenStreetMap, and it's been a good time. There's a lot of local groups across the country. One of them is MapTime, which we'll have Jonathan speak about in a few minutes. Within OpenStreetMap US, we're trying to create a community ambassador program and do more to support these local groups who are getting out into their communities and bringing OpenStreetMap to places that really need it, and making sure cities like Baltimore are really well mapped. We have charter projects. So Teach OSM is a project to teach teachers how to bring OpenStreetMap into their classrooms. So we teach a couple hundred teachers every year. Teach OSM is also run by all volunteers, very hardworking volunteers in OpenStreetMap, and it's growing. So this is last year at the Geography 2050 conference in New York. This is a group of teachers. We went out and collected data in Queens, and then went back in and put it into OpenStreetMap. So they're learning how to use OpenStreetMap so they can then bring that and integrate it into their curriculum in their high school classrooms. These are some committees that we have. One of the next big spaces for OpenStreetMap, I think, is in government space. So figuring out how DOT data and NOAA data and OpenStreetMap data can complement each other and potentially fill gaps in both data sets. We have a code of conduct committee now. So if you're communicating on any of our spaces or at any of our events, there is a code of conduct. And we have event planning committees. All right, 2 more minutes, I promise. Who is using the data? So this is like not an exhaustive list, but here are some of the bigger companies who rely on OpenStreetMap, and many of these companies have their own mapping teams internally. I don't know if Tesla's on this list, but I know Tesla now uses it, and Facebook and Apple and Microsoft, Uber, Grab, Craigslist. If you've ever bought anything on Craigslist, you notice OpenStreetMap in the background. So yeah, this list just continues to grow. One thing Facebook's been doing a lot of is AI and machine learning for mapping. They have a tool called Rapid. And actually just last week, they worked with Esri to bring in address data from a few cities. And this tool, it's called Rapid, uses machine learning and AI, and a human user has to go in and say this feature's right. So if that's something you'd be interested in play with, you can check out Rapid. Strava recently moved to OpenStreetMap. Like I said, Pokemon. And Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. They got started back with the Haiti disaster, and there wasn't any good data available. So OpenStreetMappers came together and started mapping what Haiti looked like the day before, and got that data to humanitarian teams on the ground, and Humanitarian OpenStreetMap was formed. They have grown by leaps and bounds, and they are responding to disasters all over the world. Two examples. They have tasks. Anyone can help map these tasks. If you have an account, you can sign up and go to their tasking manager, which you'll learn about in a little while, what a tasking manager is, and help to support their mapping efforts. Amazon is a big mapper. Map a lot of driveways, you can imagine. You can find you to deliver your stuff. Jonathan, did you add this one too? Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I added these in. I just discovered this recently about these Amazon logistics mappers that are just mapping constantly when delivery drivers report errors. This is one mapper's edits over a year, just like a heat map of all the places where they're editing. And you're thinking, well, US, probably that's a place that has really good map data. Well, there's a lot of still little gaps that last little mile or so of getting a package to your house. And if you go to the next slide here, you'll see that often these edits in and around the Baltimore, DC area are just one little thing, like this driveway's missing and this alley's incorrect and this place is not passable. I just thought it was a really good example, and certainly Amazon is using this for their own business, but it ends up helping everybody, right? And I think that's still a good thing. Not speaking as Amazon are good or bad, no statements there, right? Just talking about the data. Yep.
Want to keep going?
Yeah, I'll keep going. This is another cool example I saw of just how OpenStreetMap is being updated and edited constantly. This is from a few months ago. The blue lines here represent new edits in Wuhan, China, starting in 2020, and the gray lines is everything added before that. And I think it's a neat example of just how rapidly mappers can respond to different crises and go and get better information in the map, kind of following along with what we're talking about with Humanitarian OpenStreetMap.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I'll just keep going. So if you're a data person, looks like we've got a lot of attendees. Maybe you guys care about data in some way and you really care about the authority and authenticity of this data. You're thinking, well, this is open, this is community driven. Can I trust this data? It's not quote unquote authoritative compared to city or county data. And I think the answer is, the next slide, please. I think, yes, you can, right? There are a substantial number of quality control checks in place, automated and manual checkers. People care a lot across the OpenStreetMap community. They care very seriously about griefing, about accurate information. All of you guys are probably new editors, and all of your edits will be QC'd automatically. They'll be flagged for review just because you're a new editor, and somebody will make sure, hey, this looks pretty good. Okay. There's published list of the naughty words that are automatically flagged. So if you were trying to grief and put bad things in there, those will get flagged instantly. They check for Pokemon edits to make sure that sometimes they're valid, because they are. This is really a pond, or sometimes people try to add fake stuff just to spawn more Pokemon in their neighborhood. And there's ways to check for that. There's different checks to make sure, you know, if you're a GIS person, you might be familiar with topology. That's to make sure shapes are connected. So there's checks to make sure roads are connected, that sidewalks are connected. There's checks to make sure people don't delete New York City or Lake Erie and stuff like that. And so, you know, I think in some ways, this is my personal opinion. I have no data to back this up. Maybe in some ways it's better than what we say, quote unquote, authoritative sources in some contexts. If you go to the next slide, because, you know, if there's a problem or if something's missing, guess who can fix it, right? How many times have you gone to Open Baltimore and the data hasn't been updated in 4 years and you're stuck? Well, guess what? With OpenStreetMap, you have that power, right? If you scroll to the next slide there, and you can make that change. If a playground is missing, you can add it, right? And you're adding it based on a data standard that everybody in the world follows, and you're making a better data set overall. Next. This is a lot of stuff. This is a lot of words. I'm not going to talk about all these. OpenStreetMap is organized into geometry things, points, lines, and polygons and relationships, and tags. And the tags are really cool because they say what something is. Is it a dirt road? Is it a shack? Is it a building? Is it a bowling alley, a playground? There's lots of tags. There's lots of fun you can do. And there's tags about tags, like this is a 60-mile-an-hour road. This is a 20-mile-an-hour road. This is one way. It's a really rich set of data, and everybody's using the same rules all around the world, right? So if you go grab playgrounds, you're going to get the same basic data. You're going to get the same form of the data, whether it's a playground mapped in Baltimore or one mapped, in somewhere else in the world. And I think that's really powerful if you're a data person and you're trying to get information across regions and countries or even counties. That data is formatted very differently. Next. And there's a lot of information there. And I think that information and background information really helps grow confidence. So this is an example. We were doing some editing at CCBC Catonsville, and we were drawing points and features on the campus. And we noticed that there were a number of errors automatically flagged by the system. Next. And this is an editor that you'll be working with very soon called the ID editor. And it had automatically flagged all of the solar panels on campus as potentially having a warning or a problem. Now, I didn't edit these. These were edited by somebody else, probably a student on campus several years ago. And next. And as we dug further into that, we said, well, what's this error coming up? And it says, well, this really should have this tag of generator output electricity. So, well, okay, I don't really know a lot about solar power electricity, so what does that mean? And I kept clicking deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole. Next. And there's this huge wiki of information to say, well, this is why this should be tagged this way. And this is, not something that one person has identified. This is a group consensus to decide this is how data should be put together. And I think that's really powerful because, again, it's the same all over the world. And that you can just go really deep into reading about this stuff. People are really into this kind of thing. Next. And there's lots of different tags. Like I said, this is a cool app, Tag Finder, where you can learn about different ways to tag things. You might find that useful this evening, although we're going to be tagging relatively straightforward stuff, trees and grass and stuff. Forest, excuse me. Let Elliott talk about that. But if you think for your particular organization or project, well, I really care about, I don't know, little libraries or playgrounds or food resources or medical resources, there's probably a lot of tags already for that. Somebody asked about, differences in mappers, background and profile, and maybe there's different ways to tag based on somebody's understanding of that location. Next. Yep, back to you.
All right. Yeah, so if this is interesting to you, either right now or later, here's some additional resources. I didn't talk about field papers, but that allows you to walk outside, print something out and go outside and add to the map. And then there's a QR code in the corner and you can scan it in and then use it as a background to trace later. Yeah, there's so much information out there. So if you're interested, it won't be hard to find. I promise you that the slide doesn't say loading. It's not a joke. That would be great. So how can you get involved? Well, tonight you can sign up for an account and start mapping. You can download a mobile app and use those to go out in the field. You could attend a MaptimeBmore event or an OSNUS Happy Hour. We also have a membership structure with OpenStreetMap US. So if you're interested in becoming a member, you're more than welcome to join us. There's 225 members right now. We're also a 501c3, so you can always donate and support what we're working on. So right in Baltimore, there's a great group that's here tonight. Jonathan, back to you to talk about MaptimeBmore, and I think this is the second to last slide.
Muted. I'll try to show my face if anybody's looking at the video. I'm Jonathan Dandois, co-organizer of MaptimeBmore, along with some of these other great people that are on here tonight. We're a social mapping nerd group here in Baltimore City. Before everything shut down, we try to meet at least once a month at a university, at a bar, at a cool place to have a field trip. We had a cool tour of the Peabody Art Library one time, mind-blowing. And we really care about, getting everybody as possible involved in GIS and mapping and cartography and geo stuff. We like each other. We're great. Yes, there's a Maptime DC. They're amazing too. They are much larger. I think MaptimeBmore is pretty great too. Um, but we want to see more people and new people. And, you know, we do mapathons like we're about to do this evening. We've gone to colleges and done networking, lightning talks, where we have us as professionals. I'm a GIS analyst at Johns Hopkins University. My other colleagues here have other great backgrounds in the local area, and just learning what students are doing. So if any of you are out there and we want to do, you know, you're a professor, you want to do a Zoom or something, we could do this at your university. And we've had open source web mapping tutorials with one of my colleagues, Thayer and I, where we teach people how to do, you know, open source web mapping to build your own apps and stuff using free tools. Like I said, we've done cool field trips. We just have networking happy hours, and I am a main point of contact. There are others. It looks like the slide might be cut off, but you can probably kind of figure out how to reach us. Just Google MaptimeBmore. I'm not the best at social media, but I think I do okay about covering the field there. This picture here is a really fun project we did with Advocates for Children and Youth back in the fall, where they approached us about trying to understand where playgrounds are in Baltimore, or where there are lack of playgrounds, lack of play opportunities. And so we had a mapathon at their offices. They bought us pizza, and we all sat around and mapped playgrounds in the city. And you find a lot of cool stuff. And we added a lot of playgrounds to the map. And then that's something that we worked with them to show them how they could download that, use it for free, essentially unlicensed or free license in their own work and in their own analysis and promotions. And I think that's been really beneficial to them. So MaptimeBmore will be back in person eventually, and we look forward to seeing you. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Jonathan. I don't know what's up with that, but I think this slide should say, now let's get mapping. So thank you very much for your attention. And I think now I can hand it over to Elliott for the fun stuff. So thanks again.
Actually, do you mind if I cut in really quickly? Hi, this is Sharon. Everyone. I would want to just make a really quick plug. So we at the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, we have been hosting some data science students with us. And so tomorrow we're going to be having an Ignite session and a presentation from two of these students who have been using OpenStreetMap to look at coronavirus assets in the city of Baltimore. So I've just now put a link to register to that session. So that will be tomorrow on day 5 of Baltimore Data Week. So hope you can join and support these students who are also with us here tonight. So thanks everyone.
All right, thanks Cheryl. So let's get started here. I'm going to share my screen and we can begin. All right. Is that coming through okay?
Yeah.
Everybody, okay, I see some nods there. Great, great.
Yep, you look good. I'll repost the link in the chat.
Yep. Oh, thank you so much. So tonight we're going to be doing a mapathon, which, you know, as Maggie was going through the some of what we do in the community, John as well. A mapathon is one of those things, sort of getting everybody together, focus on one topic for an evening or a period of time, and then kind of just focusing on one area. And so for our Baltimore Data Week event, we chose to look at sort of maybe gaps in the areas of Baltimore that are, or I should say, where there's gaps in kind of land cover data, street trees, green things that kind of make give the map some contrast. So if you look at the OpenStreetMap.org website, and I will do that here. As I kind of zoom in, you'll see that the map is generally comprised of buildings and addresses and sort of just this white backdrop gray area. But really within these spaces there's something, trees, or there's a little play area, some fields, something to that effect. And the goal here is to try to map those green things, specifically trees to start, just to kind of give the map a little character. So if I zoom out here and maybe look at Patterson Park, where I spent some time adding every tree, and you can kind of see, it gives the map a bit of a flair in terms of just showing level of detail that is different from just a sort of drab background. And you see we've added like baseball diamonds, and they're all labeled and whatnot. And this is not just me. This is collaborators all over the world just kind of pop in here, and they might see a little pond or something and want to add to it. You can see here someone's added some trees. So that's what we're going to focus on today, just given that the map some definition around the city. So the task, in order to make it so we don't like overrun each other and work in the same area, we're going to use what's called the tasking manager. So looks like John put a link here in the chat, and if you go to that, this is where we'll start. Now, this tool requires a OpenStreetMap.org account, which is free. You'll have to sign in and sort of link. The first time you go to it, it'll have you sign in. If you don't have an account yet, you can make one, and you can probably make one right there, I think, Maggie, or you can go to the regular OpenStreetMap.org and register. If you've never mapped before, there is a little tutorial that I would recommend. And if you want, once you get signed up, you can go in to, let's say, I'll put a link in here in the chat. You just go to the regular OpenStreetMap website, zoom in to any area, hit edit. You'll get like a pop-up that says, this is your first time, and then it kind of takes you through this walkthrough in an like a sort of sandbox environment. So it'll have you add some points and edit some things just to get a feel for the interface. Now, don't do that just yet. I'm going to start going through the tasking manager task and kind of show the process. But I will, once we kind of set off and start doing our own thing, that might be a good time, if you haven't edited yet, to go in and do some of that work, that tutorial. All right, so the tasking manager. What this does, like I said, it breaks down the city into these little grid boxes. And what we'll do today is basically follow the instructions here. Go into the map. We're going to add trees, either individually as points or as clumps of trees with the woods tag, which I'll show. And then any other green items, I like to say. So a sports field, which in the OSM lingo is usually called a pitch, but you'll see that you don't need to really even know that, because when we find something and want to add it, there's this little search that we'll pick, sort of search for whatever we think that thing might be called, and typically we'll get a suitable tag. And I'll show some examples, some grass, some tree clumps, some individual street trees, and a couple of kind of handy shortcuts along the way. All right, so I've already started working on a task right here that's in blue. Now, when you start working on the project, you'll get, sort of the way it works is, of course, read the instructions here. When you're ready to go, just you can pick a random area, maybe just click one of these little squares, and then you'll hit the button to start mapping. So I've got mine selected. It repeats the instructions here: single trees as point, clump kind of trees as an area using the wood tag, which I'll show, and then best judgment for everything else. I recommend for this evening the ID editor. It's a simple web environment to do edits that, it all works right in the browser. And it's very well designed. It's got a great user experience. So that will work out well for you. So before we get started, any questions to this point? I haven't been
Elliott,
monitoring the chat.
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
you're doing great, Elliott. The chat's good. Everybody else is good on that. Everybody else, before you get started with this, as Elliott mentioned, you will have to go through the sign up process, and there are a few steps there to register your new OpenStreetMap account with tasks.openstreetmap.us. It'll be kind of a thing like, do you want to allow OpenStreetMap to look at this site, right? So there are a few steps you need to do before you get to the point where all these buttons appear for you like they are on Elliott's screen. But they're pretty straightforward. I mean, you just fill in the blanks. We're all here to help you with all of that. But it won't just be as because Elliott already has this queued up, of course, right? So
That's right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I've selected my task. I'm going to hit Start Editor. Now, what this will do, it'll launch the OpenStreetMap editor with this pink box. Now, the pink box is your working area. This prevents it, someone else from kind of going into your work area, and it prevents you from kind of going outside of your zone to minimize the chance for conflicts. The system does have a sort of conflict management function, but we don't want to really run into that if we can avoid it. And since we're mostly adding new things, we probably will not have a problem. But just to be safe, we're going to use the task manager here and try to stay within this box. Okay, so let me zoom in somewhere along here. Okay, now as you zoom in, you may notice that what we call the background, or sometimes known as the base map, is slightly different than this. It probably will default to what's called the Bing imagery. And if you hit the B key, so let me turn that off, and I have B on my keyboard. Alternately, you can hit right here, this little 3-layer icon. You can select a different background. In the state of Maryland, we're blessed to have totally free, open orthophotography, which is a type of sort of GIS air image, kind of like satellite view in Google Maps, that is very high accuracy, high detail. And when it says 6 inch, that means each pixel is 6 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches. So it basically means high resolution. And you see a lot more detail than you typically will see on the Bing map, like individual trees. You can pretty clearly see like shadows of trees, like here's one right here. Okay, now the thing about this imagery, it is taken in the winter when there's no leaves on the trees. So if a tree is like dead or just small, it can be hard to see on the imagery. What I would suggest as you're going through this is maybe switch between some of these other sources. You can look at the Maxar one. Okay, it looks like that's a little grainy. You could try this Esri imagery. Now I can see that same tree I was looking at right here is much more sort of in bloom. If we look at it on Bing, well, you can see there's definitely a tree there. So just keep in mind that there are other imagery options, and you can kind of swap between them to get like the best picture as sort of what you're trying to add here. Now, this we think is a roadside tree. Very simply, hit the point tool up here at the top. We're gonna hit the number 1 on the keyboard as it says there. And then I'm just gonna click. Now, a bit of GIS 101 here. The tree appears to be like laying on its side, across the sidewalk, as does this light pole right here. And so that is actually caused by the shadow of the thing. This image is taken from a plane flying overhead at some point in the day when there's shadows cast. So it's important to kind of recognize that the thing that you're looking at might actually appear as a shadow. And so what I like to do is look at where the shadow ends, and that's going to be the base of the tree, and that's where I'll drop the point. Now, look at that. Tree is one of the first things that pops up as a sort of suggested thing that you're about to add. You can type in.
Sorry.
Is it?
Yep.
Is it not the first one for you?
I don't know. I haven't done it yet. Let me check.
Yeah.
You're fine. Sorry to interrupt you.
If you don't see it right away, you can type tree, and there's a tree. Now, this is what we call a tag, or sort of the attributes if you're a GIS type person of this particular point that we just added. There are many tags, sort of data about data, as John put it, that you can add for a tree, or you can just add it as a tree with no extra information. But for this exercise, I know that it's a broadleaf tree because it is dead in the winter, the leaves are gone, and that it's deciduous. And there's this denotation. So when we see trees along the street, in the OSM parlance, those are called avenue trees. And I've now added all these three things. You might think, okay, well, I got to select all those ones each time. And by the way, I don't know the height or diameter from this particular, armchair mapping view. So that's the kind of thing you need some better on the ground data to populate. So we'll just leave those ones empty. But I do know leaf type, cycle, and denotation. So if I wanted to add a tree across the street using that same exact tag, right? Looks like maybe there's one right here. We can verify, switch to Bing. Yeah, there's a little tiny tree there. What I can do is click on this point and hit Control C, or Apple C if you're on a Mac, and that will copy it to the clipboard. And just, if you watch real quick, right down in this area, when I do that, Control C, it says copy to feature. Now, just move your cursor to wherever that thing is and hit Control V, or Apple, or Command V on your on a Mac. And then you get at the cursor that same feature. Now, if I click here, you'll see that it has all the same information. So you can use that to kind of rapidly go down the sidewalk here and add all the trees. Now, I've already added a couple. But let's go to an adjacent street. Now, here's our pink lines. We want to stay out of there. And let's see if we can find some more trees that aren't yet mapped. All right, did that street already. All right, let's see here. We're just kind of panning along. Looks like nothing there. All right, here's a couple. Now these ones, the difference between the avenue and sort of the tree inner park type trees, whatever this kind of area is subtle. What you can do though, let's say we'll add this one as avenue tree, but maybe you want to add this one as a non-avenue tree. The moment you hit paste, you can go in here and just hit the little delete. And I find it's a little faster than adding it as a point and then still having to add these two. So that is a little shortcut there. Now, however, let's zoom out and look at this area. I see this park. Well, this clump of trees, we could map individually, tree by one at a time, but to save time, we can add this as what we call an area, or in the how-to, it refers to it as a clump, but sort of a dense zone of forested area rather than each individual tree. So first thing I'll do here is just delete this tree that I added. I can right-click or two-finger click on a Mac, and it will bring up the little context menu here, and then we're going to hit delete. So to add an area, hit the area button, also 3 on the keyboard. And then this is just click, click, click to kind of draw around the area of this tree kind of stand. So we'll go like this. Not sure what that is. If you see, as I'm going through this, notice that I avoided that, whatever that point was, and I'm going to try to avoid sort of snapping the points to anything else that's on the map. There are subtle rules in the project about sort of what things should be kind of sort of edge matched to other things. And if you're new, best to just kind of avoid that and sort of create stuff that is independent of other things, because there's some complexity there that we don't really have time to get into today. And so now I've added this kind of.
Elliott, you could also switch your base map while you're editing that.
Right.
Kind of have to be a little careful with your clicks and your keyboard, but sometimes it can help to flip between, for canopy, like the leaf on imagery and the leaf off, just to help you see roughly where that edge is. Sometimes
That's
it can
right.
help to kind of flip back and forth, and you generally should be able to do that while you're still quote unquote editing, as Elliott is still actually editing that feature, as you can see.
That's right. You see on there, it says there's a shortcut to switch back. So if you hit Control B, so I'm going to do that. You can't see my keyboard, but if I hit, Control B, it'll just keep hit it again and again. And that Bing imagery is great to really denote the edge of this kind of group of trees. So maybe that kind of goes over there. It doesn't have to be exact. Remember, this is data that represents something. So there's a certain level of what we call abstraction, where we're sort of like assuming the edge of this clump is the string of points connected together. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but it's good enough if it's generally, rounded to the area that is covered in trees. And then I need to search for the tag that I'm going to add. Now, real quick, John mentioned the quality control. So what if I just click away and come back? Uh-oh, this area has no descriptive tags. So this is letting me know that the thing that I just added needs a tag. It needs to be something. You can't just add this area with no information other than the area. So we click feature type, it'll kind of bring us back to the option to select what type of area that is. And I will type wood, and there we go, natural wood. There is, you may notice and have questions about, another type of forested area called a managed forest. But generally, we won't see those in the urban area. That would be like maybe a farm that's been converted into a tree grove for sort of environmental reasons, or like a timber area that's used for logging. So a managed forest is something that's like man-made, whereas natural wood, and there's some, it's open to interpretation. You might say, well, these were planted by humans. But for the most part, I'd say kind of these unorganized clumps of trees, I would consider natural wood. We can add, it looks like these are broadleafed and deciduous. And if it had a name, which you almost never see, you can add that too. So there's a clump of trees added. Now here's my pink line of doom, as I'll say. So don't want to add anything up here because maybe someone else is working right there. But I can add this little area. Now, a handy thing when you're adding areas, you can hold the space bar and it will draw, as I move my cursor around, it sort of draws this automatic zone. You have to be careful when you're doing that because it might snap onto like the edge of the road as it's done there. So just delete that point out of there. But that, if you're working in an area that's sort of not near other stuff, just holding the space bar as you kind of draw a ring around the area can be a way to maybe speed up the drawing of land use type features that have a sort of non-standard, flat edge. So we'll say natural wood, then we can move on. Now, other things we talked about, other land use items or sort of green items, right? I mentioned grass, parks, things to that effect. So in Baltimore, we have, unfortunately, vacant buildings, right, that are that the city either owns or some investors own, and sometimes they fall into such disrepair that they are torn down, and that leaves these kind of holes in the urban landscape where there used to be a building, but now it's just grass. So in the OpenStreetMap tagging structure, there's a number of ways you can kind of interpret how to map these. I was just chatting with some other mappers on the OpenStreetMap Slack channel, which you can join. There's a link on the website, or actually right here in the editor. But some might interpret these areas as what we call brownfields. Others may call it just grass. I think that when this little, which was once a house, is basically made into a grass lot, I think it's fine to call it grass because it is grass. And the brownfield sort of infers that the area is like an industrial kind of demolished area that's been converted to scrap, and it's not like a safe place to be walking around, whereas the city tends to convert these into little, almost like a small park, and oftentimes the community uses it that way. It's like you might see a garden on them, a little swing set or something. So we're going to add this one as grass, and that's pretty easy to do. So let me start over there. As you add these areas, you just want to kind of go around in a standard way. So see, I did 1, 2, I'm kind of going counterclockwise. Now, when you get to the edge of a building, you'll see a little white circle pop up that you can, that's kind of begging you to snap the edge of the thing, this grass area that we're adding to the building. In this case, I'm going to do that because these things generally run like right to the edge of the adjacent building. And it's better to do that than try to like overlap the building a little bit, because that wouldn't really make sense to have the grass inside the space of the other building. Just be mindful of when you're working with existing features, not to inadvertently like move the shared point over here or something, because that'll sort of mess up the existing data. And if I did that, it'll say, hey, that was bad, and it just snaps it back for me. Just in case, you can always undo with the this button up at the top if it did somehow let that stick. All right, so that is the grass tag. That doesn't have any common sub tags, so it's just grass. And if you don't see it, again, GRASS. Now, if you do search for grass in there, you'll see there are other grassy items. So we have grassland, there's a park, there's also a meadow, there is like scrub, and because the community is worldwide, there's sort of experts in any given subject, like the nuances between what a meadow and a grassland are may not be just intuitively known to me, but if I don't know, luckily each of these little things has a what's called wiki entry on the OpenStreetMap wiki. It's kind of like a Wikipedia, but for OpenStreetMap. So if I was unsure if this thing that I just added is a meadow, well, let me know here that a meadow is an area of meadow or pasture land that is primarily vegetated by grass and other non-woody plants used for hay or grazing. So clearly not this. And then what about a grassland? The grassland is any area dominated by grasses. However, the grass item is generally for these smaller areas that are usually mown and managed. So in this case, I consider these former building lots as grass because they are managed and they're not just sort of wild grasses that you find out in the middle of the woods. Here's another one we can add. And by the way, when you see this little point here, what that is an address. And generally, in 2014-ish, some local mappers, myself and a few others, some may be in the meeting right here, got together to import the Baltimore City address data onto OpenStreetMap. And we added all the buildings and their addresses right to the map. And the city, even though the house that was once here is gone, it still recognizes the address, so 602 North Gilmore Street does exist. And if someone ever were to build something here, they could reuse that. So when you see those addresses, even if there's not a thing there, don't delete them or move them around, just kind of work around those things, because those are, they're still technically an address for that sort of space, even though it's not currently occupied by a home. So here's another grass area. Maybe it doesn't quite go to the edge of that building. So we'll do a little like this, and I'm going to say it jumps to this park feature, and maybe goes to about there, and that looks pretty good. Grass, and then we can move on. Now, let's continue adding trees. We'll go right up the road here. And here's a tree. Some other street trees that we've already added. Oh, there's one. Here's another tree. The Bing is actually quite good for this because these green circles are very apparent. And that. Now, I'm going to save here so we can go look at some other areas. Some areas that I've kind of pre-selected that have some more clump trees, and we'll come right back to the map. So I'm going to hit save. Now, when we do save, it'll automatically add some hashtags in here. These are, we got the BNIA, Data Week, MaptimeBmore. These are automatically in there. And the important thing to know when we're saving, we want to kind of tell a little story about what we're doing here, what I've added, so that if another mapper comes along and says, well, what is this? This comment is going to explain what that is. Now, it'll default like so to those hashtags. You can delete that, and these hashtags will remain. And then we type a little note here, added street trees, and wooded areas in West Baltimore.
And hashtag Baltimore Data Week, sir. Hashtag Baltimore Data Week.
Is that what the hashtag? I'll up that.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Yep. Oh, yeah, down here.
Yep.
So look at that.
Oh, it already got a lot of them from your whatchamacallit session. Yep, your task.
Oh, good.
Baltimore Data Week.
Data Week. I'll update the project here in a second. Okay. Thank you, Seema. Sorry about that. Pop that out of there. All right. Go to upload. I'm gonna run a little upload, and then when this is done, my edits will be on the map. So let's see here. Okay, thank you for improving the map. You can actually view the changes on the map pretty much right away. Maybe a minute or two may go by, and sometimes it takes longer for them to show up, but you can rest assured that those are in there right away. If you want to click this little link, it'll open up a link, what they call the change set, and you can see in here in the kind of OpenStreetMap data parlance the features that were added or updated, and you can get into the kind of nitty gritty here. But that area is all good to go. We can keep working. We're talking about green items. Something I noticed here that might be good to add are these paths here. See those little paths? There's one there and one there. We go maybe switch the imagery. Oh, they're not there in that imagery. it looks like, people, there's a park back here. Maybe people have kind of paved their own little trail to that. And I always love to add stuff like that because it, kind of gives character to the map and shows how we as people sort of move. We don't often go in like a straight line, like we want to walk straight down here and go down here. We want to walk on the sidewalk until the kind of path of least resistance and cut across here. So you can actually add those on OpenStreetMap as a path. It's a little divergence from the topic at hand, but I think it's worth showing because you may bump into some existing lines that you want to edit as you kind of progress.
So those are also called desire paths.
Desire paths.
There is a key for that if you'd like to add it, although the wiki says that's less commonly used because the British have decided everything for OpenStreetMap for us, and they named everything first. So you can still use desire path, but they also have an informal equals yes tag for those kind of things that pop up on their own.
That's right.
If you want some trivia.
That's right. So let's see if they even have that informal path. Look at that. Yeah, desire path. If you're interested, there's a great Reddit for desire paths. If you're into Reddit, that has sort of photos of these things all over the world that people have sort of made their own desire paths. So that's a whole topic to go into another day. Right now, I'm just going to show how to add these using the line tool. So what is important is that every path connects to another road or way, and that allows you to kind of route, allows a computer system to sort of traverse this path. So I've added that, and then from the kind of end of it to the nearest road as a straight line, and then I ended it right here. And this is I now kind of regret going down this a little bit because this can get into the weeds of the OpenStreetMap a little bit. But I'm going to tie this into the sidewalk, which doesn't yet exist. And I'll add that by drawing a neat little line here and draw that up to somewhere, perhaps up this way. And we can add sidewalk. And we'll say that it's concrete. And it's letting me know that it crosses a building. That's not good. I don't see any building that it crossed. Oh, there's a little nub of that building. All right. Probably move that a little bit. Oops. Okay. So we got my sidewalk. Now that's tied into it. And then I will add a crosswalk right here. Now, once again, as I do this, I'm making sure that everything that it crosses, I add a little point. And that allows the computer to know when, if it was sort of running like a digital trace down this sidewalk, it would know kind of how to get to the street. So let's say marked crosswalk. There we go. So I just added those two desire paths and a sidewalk. And look, I see there's a couple other desire paths right here. So we can add those. And you can quickly see how you can go down the rabbit hole with OpenStreetMap, adding things. Because, the world, think about what a map is. It is a abstraction or a representation of the world on a either printed thing or, in this case, in data. And there's sort of infinite level of detail on the ground that you'd probably never be able to add to a map, or it would just be at some point you're sort of just reinventing the world in this sort of digital model. So you kind of have to pick and choose what you're adding. That's why today I want to focus on the green items. I just wanted to show those, the path systems, because they are part of this little park back here. You know, I think it's helpful for people to understand how to like get in and out of these spaces. So I'm going to save that. Say added a few desire paths to a park and a sidewalk. And I will update that. Okay, so let's click out of here and let's go back to my tasking manager. So I am going to stop mapping, not to say that it's completely done, but just that it is unlocked by me so that someone else could potentially go in here. As I zoom out, why look, some other people have started mapping. The little blue items mean that the area is locked. You can even click on an area and see who's working on it. So it looks like Maggie's working over here. Camille, hopefully you're out there, is working over here. And that's the kind of fun, you know, interactiveness of this Mapathon that we can do right here in the tasking manager. What I wanted to look at is this area along the train tracks in West Baltimore. Now, let me, actually, since I have this open, I'll open the map here to the same exact area. Now, if you look at where Amtrak kind of plows through West Baltimore, it is clear to see the train track and then the buildings on either side, but nothing really in between. If you ever ridden the Amtrak or MARC train between Baltimore and DC or points south, out the window, there's often a lot of woods and kind of overgrown areas, or it runs in a channel. And that green space is something I wanted to focus on adding to, you know, to kind of really represent what is around that train area, not just some sort of empty space devoid of anything. And that is the gaps we're talking about when we're talking about, you know, gaps in the map. So I'm going to hit start mapping here. Pop open the editor. And I'll zoom in. Now notice whatever the last background I use was, that will be the one that is chosen the next time. And then if you want to do the thing where you switch, you just pick another one. And then it kind of saves the last few items in that in the switcher. So as I zoom in, I can hit Control B, and then it'll switch back and forth. All right, so here's an area that's fairly clearly wooded as a clump. I would have trouble kind of seeing where the individual trees are. So that pretty clearly can be a wood. So I'm going to select the area tool, get up here to the top. The leaf off imagery is good for mapping trees because in the Bing imagery or some of these other ones, sometimes the extent of the tree canopy kind of overlaps the road or you know, whatever thing is nearby, like along here. It looks like the clump of trees goes out into the middle of the road. That's actually just the canopy, not the trees itself, hopefully. You can turn that on, and well, maybe I'm wrong there. Looks like these trees do kind of extend into the road a little bit. Some Baltimore City maintenance for you. But if I switch back and forth, you can kind of see the definition a little better. All right, so we'll add this area. Okay. In this case, I'm not going to snap it to the building. Because you think about the trees don't actually go right to the building edge, or kind of like a little gap there. And that's just the way I like to do it. You will often see trees kind of overlapping buildings or snap to them. I'm going to add the natural wood here. Now this area, it'd be, maybe there's an evergreen or two in there. You could probably leave the leaves off unless you, really know, or maybe put in mixed, because it looks like there's a mix of evergreen and deciduous in there. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now, on the other side of the track road here, looks like maybe there's this row of trees that's sort of behind this building. And then there's some kind of like scraggly area over here. So we have a tag for that called scrub. And I just gonna say it goes to about there. Scrub. See little info. Uncultivated land covered with shrubs, bushes, or stunted trees. So that describes that pretty well. However, this long straight line of trees, there's a concept called a tree row, where you can just map that as just a line. So I use the add line and draw a line along where the trees are. And if I type tree row, there it is. It has the same tags. On the map, this will show up as a green line. And you see this a lot in residential areas, like along a driveway or something. It is less precise than adding each of these trees individually. But as you'll quickly see, when starting to tackle something like this, there are, like, adding every single tree could take quite a while. So in times like that, where you have opportunity just to add all the trees kind of at once with a line, go ahead and do that. And then maybe there's another little area of scrub here. Call it like so. If
Elliott,
yes, sir. What's going on, John?
you are a font and are sage, but I think we do want to let people get started because we're probably going to expect they're going to have a lot of questions.
Yep.
I think you've covered. Do you think that's okay? No,
yeah.
These are all really. I didn't know about the tree line thing. That's awesome. I mean, that's going to be super helpful for a lot of rows in the city. I know that there's institutional plantings that's going to be really useful for. It's like one connected set of crown, but it's kind of just one row of tree trunks, right? I didn't know about that one. That one's great. Do you feel like you've covered everything you wanted to cover for everybody?
Yeah, that's basically it. Let's hand it off to kind of Q&A and let people start getting into it.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it back from here for a sec, John, or do you want to?
I think Cheryl said she's having a cat party, or the cats were screaming, so I will get started. Although I did need her. Cheryl, did you have the ability to post the one pager of links for everybody to grab onto for the getting started? So I think Elliott covered kind of everything that people would need to get started. And let me share my screen here, but I can't really demo it since I've obviously already signed up for OpenStreetMap before. So folks out there, I think the first thing Cheryl indicated you would need to do is go to openstreetmap.org/user/new. Let me see if that's right. That is right. And let me share my screen and I'll get our chat windows out of there.
Yeah, and I can share this link again also.
Thanks.
Kind of get started, but so we have that little PDF if you want to just kind of save that. And we also have the URL, which we'll put in the chat in a second to go ahead and get us started.
Thank you very much. And I will try to simulate this as best I can since I already have an account. So you'll create an account, create the display name, username, and password. Once you're able to do that, then you'll log in. And before we get to the tasking manager, I just kind of want to cover a little bit of what Elliott talked about here in the ID editor. I think the way Elliott described it for especially editing things like trees, the interface is pretty much as he explained it. So you might not need any other tutorial. However, if you feel like you want a tutorial, when you first log into OpenStreetMap and you hit this edit button in the upper left-hand corner here, you won't see that, sorry. You will see you should see, let's see, you'll get started to prompt for a walkthrough, right? And this takes about 15 minutes. So depending on how fast you want to go through this, and this will cover kind of everything. This is editing buildings and roads and also trees, and it covers a lot of the different tools in the ID editor. I don't think it's necessarily required for this task because mostly we're focusing on trees, and Elliott totally covered how do we edit that. And I actually think that the walkthrough doesn't really talk about editing trees, so Elliott's walkthrough is probably better. But if you still feel confused about the UI, this is a good example of how to click the buttons and which mouse buttons to use and stuff like that. So maybe you'd feel comfortable with that. If you have a external mouse, that's a really good suggestion. You can certainly do it with a trackpad. It's kind of designed more around mouse use, external mouse use, but it's totally doable with trackpad, especially if you bring up the keyboard shortcuts. So I'm not going to walk through the walkthrough. Didn't mean that, but I will let you guys. I don't actually know how to get out of this walkthrough, so we'll just go to there. And I want to bring up a few more things that Elliott mentioned. And that is down here, we have help if you're in the editor, and there are a number of keyboard shortcuts. So if you take the walkthrough, it will cover almost all of these, but these can be a few little reminders. So those are over there on the far left panel. So once you've got your account set up and you've chosen to do the walkthrough or not, you'll then want to jump to the task. You can ping us for any questions as you get started. Looks like people are already having issues, and that's great. Please just keep posting and we'll keep helping. Then you'll go to the tasking manager, and we've got the links posted there, and you'll log in, and this is going to, let me do it fully for you here. So you'll go to the task, you'll say log in, it will send you to OpenStreetMap, you'll enter your OpenStreetMap credentials, it'll say authorize access to your account, and there's one more step here that I can't simulate, but it's validating your tasking manager account. And it'll say, I think it'll tell you to do this before you start editing. And see, I can't really show you, but it'll tell you you can't start mapping until you validated your email, and it's just a prompt where you enter your email address, and then you should be able to keep going. Again, if you have any questions or issues with that, please let us know. I'm pretty sure it's something that pops up here on the right and says, please validate your email address. Different than this validate, which is actually mapping validation. Other than that, your account setup should be good to go. And then you'd be able to follow the prompts as Elliott has described them. I think that's really all I wanted to cover, guys. Anything else for getting people started for now? These are the instructions that Cheryl mentioned that cover that Maggie's provided us that cover kind of the steps of going through that. So you guys are on your own, but we're all here to help you.
I saw a good question from Robin about alleys. And I think you'll find that many, if not most of the alleys in the city are added. But certainly if you run across an alley, there's a tag for that. And you can add them. They follow the same convention as the path, where it just needs to kind of show, it has to be clicked to the nearby road or another alley, sort of snapped to that so that it has that kind of continuity. Yeah, and John showing here alleys in Baltimore. Yep. There are quite a few.
This is a tool called Overpass. It's mentioned in a number of the docs we've shared with you guys. It's a way to basically do a query, right? Like show me, like a search essentially. Show me everything that has this tag of alley. And actually I'm going to get rid of this highway here and I'm just going to say alley. And let's see what that does. And it has a wizard for building it. This little coding dialog can get quite complicated. But it's a way to pull out different information and even download that. So, I mentioned working with playgrounds. Thanks, Cheryl. What would be the difference between a street tree and an avenue tree? That is going to be Elliott. I don't know.
Yeah, the avenue is well, basically use the Avenue one, but in a US, parlance, a lot of people say street trees. So some people have used that in there, but the like the European way is to call these an avenue tree. There's I think maybe it was in the beginning, but there's a site that kind of shows like what % of a given kind of tag is used in the public, and you can look at the types of tree, and the avenue is much more commonly used than the street one. Now, if I'm getting that wrong, the wiki may have a description as well. I think it's probably fine to use either, and it doesn't kind of affect how they look on the map, but it's more of a descriptive piece of data to add to it. Some, I should say, some tags that you would add have affect the way things appear on the OpenStreetMap website or on any of these other services like that are ingesting the data and using it for their own maps. So like if you marked a path or alley as private, it typically adds like a little dotted line on it to say that it's, there's something restricted there. And then other maps might not show private things at all, or also might use a dotted line to kind of highlight that. So some of the sub tags, right? They impact the way that the data looks, whereas others are more descriptive. What else do I have in here? I did edit the project so that the hashtag Baltimore Data Week will show up. You may need to refresh like the tasking manager, or it might just be that the next one you do will have it.
So Elliott, there's a question from Eric about how do you handle it when a wood area spans out of your zone? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Elizabeth, I'll figure out your answer.
So Eric, hey, if that happens, it's probably fine to go into the adjacent zone, but I would just kind of switch back to the tasking manager and look if someone is working directly next to you. If not, you could probably continue that into there. If someone is, maybe just avoid adding that section. If you like, let's say, I'll share again here. Let's say, for example, here's an example of that, where this clump of trees here goes over the line. So you could add it like that, but then you have to join them together, and that's a little complex. So I can look back to the north of where I'm working, and I see no one's working right there at the moment. Maybe quickly add those in, and then do a save, like save then, that way your edits are up there. So if someone starts working here in the next few seconds, once everything's uploaded, they'll get the most recent data.
It's like we've got at least 10 of you guys that have registered or got a tile checked out for editing. Congratulations, that's awesome. Folks, if you're still working on it, please, and I don't think all of those are us, so at least a couple of them are you attendees. Thank you, that's great. If you're having any issues, please let us know.
I realize that there's a Zoom question and answer thing, but there's nothing in there, right? Am I seeing that right?
I think I don't know, actually. Are we just using the webinar chat? I think we're just using the webinar chat.
like the Q&A section is kind of good for seeing like direct questions that, you know, people can post there too. And then it also provides us the ability to type out kind of like an answer there, to answer it live in the chat. And then we can mark those as completed or still open. So yeah, if folks want to just use the chat, that's totally fine, because we've got a lot of eyes using it though. Thanks. And also, by the way, if you are watching us live on Facebook, I am monitoring the Facebook chat. So if you do have any questions there and you're not with us on the Zoom, you can submit them on Facebook and I'll copy them over to this other session so we can get your question answered. Thanks.
Robin asked another great question about slow streets. For those of you who are not familiar, slow streets is well, there was a seminar like Tuesday or Wednesday, right, Cheryl, at Data Week about them, and someone can probably throw out a link here. But it's a program in the city to, during the pandemic, to reduce the kind of car usage of certain streets that are not being used really anyway by cars, and make them more usable for pedestrians, bikers, people in wheelchair, joggers, strollers, that kind of thing, by kind of limiting through traffic. And so Robin asked about how we might add slow streets to the map. I highly doubt there's a direct slow streets kind of tag, but there are some other options that I think kind of make sense in this case that we could look at. There is what they call pedestrian street and or a living street. So why don't we just do a little live research here and we'll figure this out. Great question, and relevant to some other things that have gone on in Data Week here. So I will look for living street. And let's see what that is. So I'm checking out on the wiki. A living street is shared space. These types of road have lower speed limits, special traffic and parking rules compared to residential streets. Well, this seems quite right. As opposed to a pedestrian street, which is one that's like closed to traffic, car traffic. There are some pedestrian streets around Baltimore, like Old Town Mall, where they have sort of bollards across the road, so you can't really like drive in them, but cars can, people can walk through. In the case of a slow street that I happen to live near and I'm familiar with, South Linwood Avenue in Patterson Park, I think the living street makes more sense there. So why don't we update that? And we can do that right now. So got a tab open here with OpenStreetMap. Here's Patterson Park, the area that is closed. And someone throw out if I'm misremembering, I believe it's from Lynn Eastern to maybe Pratt, just like this little section. I know you know, Robin. Baltimore to Pratt. Oh, perfect. So, and it does go all the way down to Eastern, I think. I've seen. Now, what if it's closed just temporarily? Well, it is. And so there are tags that we can, kind of apply like a start date or end date to something. Or when the thing reopens, like let's say a road is closed for construction, you might go in here and change it to construction. And then when the construction is over, go back and change it back. For things that are like that are kind of temporary in nature, it's best to add a little descriptive text. There's like a note tag that we can use just to let other mappers know if they come across this thing that, let's say someone comes across it in a year, slow streets have ended, but we forgot to change it back. Then someone might see that, oh, okay, this was a temporary installation. And then they can update it accordingly. So the part that's a slow street, let's scan here. Yeah, it goes from Eastern, and then it's Baltimore to Pratt. So, okay, so it goes the whole stretch of that. That's right, I've seen those little gates all the way up on Baltimore. So the gates, well, just a quick note on OpenStreetMap. It's best to map things that you either can see on the imagery or sort of know exist in the world, either because you've visited it directly, or you can look at one of the sources on the right. There's some other like street imagery you can add. What we're about to do is, somewhat unorthodox because it's, I'm kind of using my recollection, but I think it's fine because I've seen this thing many times, and know it exists. So first thing I do there is just split this intersection, and let me show you why that is. This Linwood Way extends beyond the area that's closed, so it goes south of Eastern Avenue here, as well as north, and probably further north than that. And I only want this section to become a living street. So what I have to do is split it somewhere. This intersection is a perfect place because, even though maybe you could say like this little section here is still a regular street because, the barricade is right there. I think that's sort of that level of detail might be beyond the pale what is necessary to add. So I'll just right click that and go to split, and it's letting me know I've affected some bus lines along the way that I should probably check those out later, which I will. However, it generally handles that pretty well. The splitting is sort of, it automatically adds the parts of the sort of things that are going on behind the scenes are handled pretty well by this editor. So we'll go up here, and it goes up to right here. Oops. Oh, okay, this is already split. Okay, so let's change this to a living street. So I click the currently tagged thing, right? Tertiary road.
Elliott, is there a way to tag a fruit tree?
There probably is.
I'm pretty sure there's a species tag, right? If
Yes.
you're mapping a tree. So you might want to show them how to add extra tags in
Sure.
case that's not obvious. Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
All right, let's do that real quick, and we'll go back to slow streets. So
if
see
you go
here,
to, yeah, go ahead. You're fine. Sorry, never mind.
you got, that this is a needle-leaved evergreen park tree, and it's got the height and diameter, but no species option. Sometimes you can add a field, and the species may be, I don't know if this is good.
I think species is still a valid one from what I'm seeing from the tags, but for some reason, maybe it's not happy with it. Yeah.
This is the Wikidata thing, which we don't want to do that. Okay. There is so there's two ways to add more tags to a tree or to anything. You can use these pre-selected fields, or you can add more using this gets a little more advanced, but basically everything that's here correlates to something up here. We can add species, I think is the tag, although we should probably check.
Yeah, you're good.
And then you would add, yeah, look, see, so it's going to pre-populate it based on some species that are already in there. Maybe it's a Quercus rhubarb.
You've got, there's probably no Quercus rhubarb in America.
Yeah.
Well, there might be. What is that, English oak?
Someone threw out agricultural as an option. So it looks like, yeah, Thayer, thank you. Looks like I could change that to agricultural if that was a fruit tree. So that's one way to do it.
You've got taxon. I don't know if that would apply to a fruit tree. It might.
Now, stuff like this.
No, I guess that would be a cultivar. No, that could apply to a fruit tree. Yeah.
To answer this question, if you hit the little I, it just says a single tree. But if you go to view documentation, then this will take us to the wiki, which is usually full of information
There you
that
go.
you could add. There
You
you
can
go.
even provide the sex of the tree.
Yep. Genus. Yeah, you got the whole run. So the thing about the OpenStreetMap project is highly extensible to kind of fit whatever people want to do with it. And some people would like to, add all this kind of information. Maybe they're importing it from another source. So you can even add more tags that aren't kind of in the wiki. Although I would avoid that at first. There's certain types of things that where it's okay to come up with an item that isn't in the list, like maybe some highly specific like surface type as pine needles. That may not exist as a type of path surface, but if you can sort of type in some of that stuff. Generally, it's best to use the sort of things that are already there. And if you have a question, throw it out like in our channel here, or let me show you when you first go to how do you get that little thing where it shows like the like Slack and all the different just kind of help areas? Does anyone know?
Huh? What are you trying to do?
Like when you make an edit, it'll show the sort of like help about the project, like over in this left area.
That I don't know.
Here, let me all right, so let me undo.
After you upload, Elliott.
Yeah, after you upload, right? So here, this one I was.
Save and then it upload.
Elliott, once you're done with that, we've also got a really good question about stop sign and directions and stuff like that, and crossings. You might be good at that.
Okay, good. Here is what I was looking for. When you upload, you get these links, and there's a link to the Slack. Maybe someone can throw that link in our kind of show notes here. And it's a great, if you ever use Slack, it's like a sort of group chat tool. There's a lot of people there that will answer questions and just to kind of conversate about the project. All right. Real quick, Living Street. I just wanted to point out that I added this little section of Linwood. I changed the tag from tertiary, and then I searched living. There it is. And I'll upload that in a moment. Okay, so let's go to that question about stop signs, I think, right, John?
Yeah. C.S. Morrison, what does a backward affected stop sign mean?
Yeah, that's a very, I personally am often confused by what that means. But I think ID has a great little like tool for this. So let's say there's a stop sign at this intersection, which there almost certainly is, where this one way hits Baltimore Street. If we go and add a point, back up, if there's not a point already there, there's a number of ways you can add a point where you're going to put the stop sign. So you have to add the stop sign as a point on the existing road, not kind of off to the right where it actually is, because the sign is sort of a message to the driver, which would be on the street. So that's when I mentioned abstraction, that's kind of one of those examples. So there's no empty point here for me to add a stop sign. You can double click and it'll just add a point to an existing line, or you can hit the point thing and maybe put the point over here and drag it to the line. It has the same effect. I think it's easier just to double click. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Double click. All right, click that point. Now I'm gonna type stop sign. Aha. Now, forward, backward. This is, it has the options here. If I hit this, it specifies the direction. Well, that's not very helpful. Let's see here. See, it shows this little cone of influence. So you have to get the cone of influence to be sort of the like pointing towards the area that is affected by that. Now it says forward. It doesn't really make sense because the area that has a stop is behind the sign. But what it's saying, I guess, is that a car traveling on this road in the direction of it, which is north, is affected in the forward direction. But what it's not saying is if this was a two-way street, if you turn this way, you wouldn't have to stop right at this point. You only have to stop if you're going this direction. So that's a long-winded just answer. Short answer is use the ID tool, and you can add the forward and backward, and you kind of interactively see how that works.
Is everybody doing okay getting signed in? Or maybe you're taking the walkthrough. Looks like we've still got about 10 editors that have checked out tiles. Somebody's already flagged one as mapped. That's a very exciting one. Cool. So maybe you want to do a little, show them how things are validated, Elliott. So we've got somebody who's tagged one as mapped.
Cool.
Up
Okay.
in Clifton Park. Yeah, that's great.
I'll switch back to.
So, maybe explain what that means and all of that kind of, because the rest of the color symbology in the task editor.
Sure. In the task editor, we have a little legend here at the bottom. The red area is the priority area, which I added kind of an arbitrary area that I thought we could focus on. The yellow, which is hard to see on this that overlay, is the area that's mapped that John mentioned. As I zoom in, you can kind of see it a little better. So if I click that, this task is available for validation. So, and look, I see a note here. There are a whole lot of trees. I marked the larger clusters of wood. Try to mark all the solo trees. All right. So start validating. Do you want to? Let's see here. So what I would do as a validator is kind of go in here. It's basically just kind of a quality control. So check that the user made the updates they said they did by zooming in a little here. Here's a clump of trees. Oh, that's mapped. And then look, we've got all these little trees around here. I think every tree I see is added. Maybe there's one right here we can add to. So take one of these guys, copy, paste. All right, added one more tree. Put a little note. Look, we got that hashtag there now. And then I will say, I say mark is valid. Looks great. Thank you. Okay, then that changes to green, and that box or task is now not only mapped but valid. So we call that one done. What's next? What other questions do we have here?
We've got, I'm sorting through some of them. We've got somebody who's having an issue trying to log in. Cheryl and I are trying to figure that out. Elizabeth, if you want, I think we are allowed to unmute you. If you want to try talking, if not, you don't have to. That's up to you. But I think maybe what you're asking is you tried to search for the tag house and you came up with lots of tags.
Well, actually, I'm just have the Maryland latest 6-inch aerial imagery one
Yep.
up, and then I can easily find my house.
Yeah.
And I've tagged the sidewalk, but I thought I was just supposed to use the line to outline the house and then type.
Oh,
But
right.
should
Yep.
I be having another background on here that would help me?
Yeah, no, I think, so probably if you've used the line, which is the number 2 tool to trace the house, you
Yeah.
might not be getting the option for the house tag.
Right,
Because the
right.
house tag needs to go with an area. So you might have to, well, honestly, you might just have to delete that line.
Okay.
Elliot, I'm not sure there's a way to convert a line to an area in this, and you might just have to retrace it as an area. Yeah.
Right.
There is a way.
Okay, cool.
Oh, it's okay. I can go to area.
Yeah, because especially this editor is made to be, widely and easy to use, right? So it's trying to help you get to good data. So it won't allow you to tag a line as a house, right? Part of that QC. So that's probably what's happening.
So if I'm in area, then do I still tag? Okay, but I can't go to
Yep.
search.
Right, you go to area, you draw first, and then when you're done drawing, then you would be prompted to, maybe Elliot, if you just want to show that. I think previously in the chat, Elizabeth said she was excited about mapping her neighborhood outside of Baltimore, so I was like, you should do that.
Sorry.
That's of course great. No, there's no apologies. This is what it's all about.
Okay.
It's all about everything. Everything's great. But I think, when I told you to skip the walkthrough because we were going to focus on trees,
Yeah.
I guess that's the downside of skipping the whole walkthrough because it focuses on buildings.
I watched
But,
that.
Are you getting in the right direction?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So okay. So I'm in area, right? And then
Then you draw. And you probably, when you're done with the polygon or the shape of your house, you'd have to double click to finish. And then you should be prompted. Yeah, thanks, Elliot. Then you should be prompted. Just draw building it. This is your new under. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, if you did happen to draw like a really complex line that is actually an area, so you do like this.
It's like an L anyway.
Yeah.
It wouldn't let you, like when you click on this, it says the line. So I only get like the line type of
I think
things.
that's what was happening.
The way around that is if you add a, you say like area is yes, then it switches it to an area. And then, but in that case, it's probably easier just to re-tag it if it's relatively small.
How do I get to the address part? Because I've outlined it. I mean, I'm in area and my house is blinking. Looks like it's going to blow, right? And I can see house as an option.
So
I put the address in.
Yes.
I can put the address in. Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay, fine. Got it.
So like if this was a manor house, then I can add the address. So that's probably a bad example. Sorry, I forget that I did that.
So it says house and then it says name. What kind of name do you put like the style of architecture? Or no?
It is, so remember that just about every tag is optional. So
I mean, it would be for Falling Waters or something like that, right?
yeah.
So if you live in Falling Waters, then you can assign it that name, right?
Okay. Yeah, not that. Okay.
Yeah, generally you wouldn't see individual houses named unless they're like a historic mansion or something to that effect. But
well, that's why I was confused because when you did Baltimore, the addresses came up to the lots and things like that. So that's why I thought it would come up here.
oh yeah, so that information was all added by someone, but it won't.
Oh,
if it's not there already, yeah, you won't have it. And that,
okay.
since so we didn't talk about it too much, but the project does have the ability for collaborators to kind of import government data into it,
Right.
like addresses, and that could be kind of a shortcut to get a lot of information on there that would be, otherwise somewhat daunting to try to
Yeah, exactly. It would be.
Oh, looks like we've got Elizabeth. You're good.
I am. Thank you very much.
Cool, thank you. Looks like we've got somebody raising their hand. Carl, I am going to let you speak if you'd like. So you can start talking. And Elizabeth, I'm going to mute you. Thank you. Carl, would you like to try to talk? Oh,
Oh,
Yep.
that was an accident that my
Oh,
hand was
okay.
raised.
Okay,
Alright,
no
so-
problem. That's okay. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Already.
That's okay. Yep. Yes, Justin, you hit Q. I think you have to have the polygon selected and you hit the Q key and that'll try to square things. Also, that's in the tutorial that I asked you all to skip. So that's me. Also, if you hit the O key, the letter O, that will circleify things. That is probably my favorite tool. So if you want to go in and map circular pools, it's a lot of fun. Yes, Open Historical Map is very cool. So if anybody did skip the walkthrough because you were excited to just jump in and get started, I'd encourage you to go back on your own time and take that. It really does take about 15 minutes. And you can jump into a task. Like you can continue this task if you want. Or you can just poke around. I mean, I guarantee if you go to your neighborhood, if you live in the city or in the county or out where, you'll find plenty of stuff to add.
So I just uploaded that the change to the slow street in Patterson Park. See how it's going here.
We've got another finished tile, Poppleton. So that'll be good. That'll be very different than Clifton Park, I'm sure.
Yep, let's take a look at that.
Yes, it is addictive. That is a fact. When we finish, we should see how many edits Elliott has done in a lifetime. And that's all you got. Sorry, Elliott, I'm going to shame you here or embarrass you. It's not a shame. It's amazing. But as you're editing through Baltimore and anywhere in Maryland, you'll probably notice in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, it probably says Elliott's name. And some of those might be edits from this particular kind of work, and some are edits that he's mentioned over the years of bulk adding things. It's been lots of stuff, right, Elliott? I mean, roads, public transportation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is addictive. It's kind of fun to contribute. I look at it as all these other things that I like to use already, like Strava or Facebook, are sort of using this information, and I can contribute to the kind of common good by putting this information out there. So yeah, if you have any interest in cartography or GIS, oftentimes the work you do ends up like on a shelf or in some government office or something, right? OpenStreetMap's a way to get that same kind of to do that same kind of work and put it out to the world.
Elliott, you want to do an OSM fight challenge?
Oh, geez. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's do it. That's one of these little websites, right? OSM fight.
I just dropped it in the chat. There's someone named Pascal Nice who makes all these tools, so you can see how you contributed, or you can. I dropped both of those links in the tab, so you can start to see where other people are mapping, or see how many days of year you mapped, or what parts of the world you mapped in. And this is a fun one too. You want to show how you contribute, Elliott? And there you go. Oh no.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me start over. I was making sure I
Go for it.
Right
I thought you were gonna fight me, so I was pretty.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna add my friend Mike, who's also fairly.
I would say do that because I edit, but definitely not as much as you. You will trounce me.
All right, let's see what happens. Oh, only Elliott Plack is possible. Who has more mapping days? Oh, he's ahead. More traces, more highways. Discussions. This is kind of cool. Ah, MD Rhodes wins. That's funny. It's neck and neck. Who else? How about John? What's your OSM name?
Lost Hiker.
Like so?
Oh, mine is very wimpy. I'm not. Yeah, that's my tag. That was just like that. Yep. Oh, I will.
Let's put in Maggie. Are you Maggie Maps? I think.
I am.
Oh, I probably. Did I like miss?
Oh, I capitalized the M's.
Wow, it's cap sensitive. Oh man.
It is. Some of these tools can be tricky.
Yeah.
The other fun thing to do after you're done a mapathon is just to go over to OpenStreetMap.org and click on the history button and see all the different change sets that have come through. And you'll see your name pop up and you can see the areas that you mapped.
Oh, I got 1 point. Oh, I got 2 points.
It's neck and neck again.
Pretty good match. Ooh, what did I win?
Oh, that's an obvious. We know who won the countries. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 24. And then you can click on an individual user in this tool and it'll show like how they contribute. It's pretty neat. So you can see like an area where that person has been working recently. If you go to mine, it's probably more full of data.
And there's heat map. Did you link to that one yet, Maggie? That's fun.
My dog.
Oh, that's a happy dog. Yeah, I dropped the link for heat map in there. I did it on myself this morning, and you could probably figure out where I live from looking at my heat map.
So look, as I go in here and hit history and zoom around.
That's a good question, Seema. Yeah, well, I think, Elliot, how do we search by hashtag?
It doesn't have a great like built-in way that I know of, but in the overpass, I think you can do it. I think we tried to do this with the playground one. Do you remember, Maggie?
So
there's another Nice. Oh, okay. Here it is. Results maps.
OSM Cha is a good one too. It's a little
yeah.
I think.
Let's
do filters. Hashtag.
We've got, here you go. I did Baltimore Data Week. We've got, it might not be counting everybody, all the new editors yet. Also, you guys need to save probably. So we're getting close to the end to make sure you hit save. Looks like it's only tagging 3 contributors with that hashtag so far. Elliot, what might have been some other hashtags in there? Hashtag
just BNIA was one.
Okay. That's better. Oh, over 2,000. Yeah, 9 contributors. So maybe that was just people that, there you go. Maybe that's people that got in after the hashtag. Sorry about that, Seema.
Yeah, well, and I left that one on across.
So people are coming through later. We should still be able to flag that one.
2,700.
That's okay. You'll just have to edit more, Elizabeth. The week's not over yet.
That's right. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for being a part of Baltimore Data Week. Cheryl did an awesome job corralling and making this happen. And this is really like literally watching like the GIS gurus of Baltimore work. So it's awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for hanging in there. Our 12 attendees, hopefully you'll become part of the troops to make sure that we have all kinds of open resources for Baltimore.
Definitely.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
having us, Seema. Thanks, Cheryl.
Guys ready to close out, or you need anything else? Cheryl, you want to say anything before we go?
No, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you to Maggie and Jonathan and Elliott for guiding all of us. We're going to have we have a lot of different links and resources to share with everybody. So we're going to be compiling all these things, sharing that out on our page for Baltimore Data Day. We've been live streaming to Facebook, so we've got this video that will be on Facebook. We'll take a look and see. This is a long 2-hour session. Thanks everybody for bearing with us. So maybe put some highlights on YouTube. So I'm hoping that this will be a resource and an inspiration for others to contribute to OpenStreetMap and make sure that all neighborhoods in Baltimore are represented. So thank you so much. We did again include a link to an evaluation. So if you'd like to help us out and fill that out, that would be great. And then hopefully we'll see some of you guys tomorrow for our last day of Baltimore Data Week, where we're going to be celebrating 20 years of BINIA. So thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.